Hey, I'm Doug. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this video on the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. The goal of this video is basically for it to function as a user guide. So whether you already own the Quad Cortex, you perhaps have one on the way, or are kicking the tires, you can get the very most out of this box. Like you heard at the top, we're going to be covering captures in the capture chapter. We're also going to be going through a huge range of demos with instruments as diverse as the American Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, the Piezo in my PRS, as well as bass. We're also going to unpack some of the key features like scenes and wrap them around specific demos so you can see how you can make the most of the fact that you have 8 scenes per preset for building your tones. For example, in the one preset gig chapter, we're going to talk about using one amp algorithm, the Marshall 2203, which by the way sounds amazing, and mapping that out to some different scenes with varying levels of gain, having different effects that you can switch on and off, and then with a 5-way pickup selector on a Strat, being able to toggle between a huge range of tones and styles that could get me through pretty much any gig. And in turn, in the GRETSCH AC30 demo, we're going to map out 2 different compressors to pairs of scenes so you can toggle back and forth to A/B test which compressor sounds best when the amp is dry, which one sounds best when you add reverb, and which one sounds best when you add reverb and delay. The point being is you're going to find that it's great to be able to toggle back and forth between those pairs, but also when you start randomly accessing those different individual scenes, you really begin to find out what's going to work best as you build your tones. And last but in no way least, one of the things I haven't heard anybody talk about is how the heck do you get this thing loud? So in the Making It Loud chapter, we're going to talk about incorporating my Powerstage 700 power amp, 700 watts of fun, and the Celestion FR/LR full range live response speakers behind me. Also, down in the show notes, you're going to find timeline links for all the chapters, so you can click or gesture to whatever content you want to get to. Speaking of gestures, in a moment, we're going to check out the user interface, and that touchscreen is nothing short of awesome. But I would like to take a quick second and invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you like the video, please hit the like button. With that said, let's get to it. The user interface for the Quad Cortex is nothing short of amazing. I love the big volume control and I love the visual feedback. I would suggest keeping this always set at 100. This area here is called the grid for fairly obvious reasons. If you want to set up a new path, you simply hit that guy and select an input, and you need to make sure to select an output or else you're not going to hear it. Hit this guy to undo something if you want to undo that, multiple layers of undo. The other things you can do is you can redo. Good, we've got our inputs and output back. Now watch this. Now I'm simply dragging a block onto there, and now I've literally set up a sound that quickly. That is pretty awesome. All right. The other thing is that this is the save button. You want to make sure you save it. And one of the important things to notice is that when you've made some sort of a change, let's get over and edit this guy right here. And you back out of here. You'll notice that it becomes italicized with an asterisk. So one of my other favorite features about this guy, I'm in preset mode right now. So if I move over to this other preset here, and then I go back, it takes me back to that unsaved preset. That is nothing short of awesome. So again, when it's unitalicized and little green checkbox is there, you know you're good to go. All right, this is how you kind of bank up and down between the different banks. These are obviously the different foot switches for the different presets. You can toggle between preset, scene, and stop mode there, or by using these 2 foot switches here. Most people will probably spend most of their time in the scene mode, which makes it easy to go between different variations of a preset. Pretty darn straightforward. You've got your tuner function here. You just hold that puppy down. This makes for a great user interface. The last thing I want to point out before we move on, let's do it with a delay block here, is in addition to being able to make adjustments from the touchscreen, you can also use the encoders. And what I love about the encoders here, if you watch this feedback here, you'll notice that literally every time I turn the notched encoder, it moves up 0.1%. So that is, if you will, kind of a one-to-one relationship with those turns. That is a phenomenal user experience. spent a lot of time playing through the Archetype, Plini, and Abbasi plugins, which I actually own. I knew this box was going to sound great. What I was really charming at the bit to check out was the capture function that you just heard. That amp is a Jose modded Marshall that belongs to a buddy of mine that I borrowed for this demo. And basically everybody that I played that clip for was like, holy cow, does that sound great. The capture function, as you'll see in a moment, is incredibly straightforward. And I'm super excited to bring captures of this, my 1964 Reverb, my 64 AC30 with original silver bells, as well as my highly prized 1967 Pinstripe Marshall cabinet with the holy grail 55 hertz pulsonic cones, capture all that stuff, and bring it to market as soon as there's a mechanism to be able to do that. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, there's a link to sign up for my email list down in the show notes here. And I'm Doug Doppler, without a space in between, on the Cortex Cloud app. All right, so for that demo, I was using, obviously, the capture of that amplifier with 2 instances of the tape delay. Those were hard panned, using a dotted eighth note on one side and a quarter note on the other. So the capture process is really straightforward. You go up to these 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner and select them, and then select New Neural Capture. And it literally just walks you through how to connect things. And once you're ready, you hit confirm and you do your capture. It's that easy. Scenes are incredibly powerful in terms of being able to use one preset and one guitar for an entire gig. So this particular preset is made up of a 2203 Marshall, a greenback cabinet, a great sounding digital delay, and a spring reverb. I'm going to select the amp here. Take a look at the gain control, and you can see as I toggle between these different scenes here, that moves up and down, as does the presence control. Also, as I change different scenes, you can see that the delay and the reverb blocks will turn on and off. And that sort of ability to map that out across these 8 scenes at one preset level is super powerful, again, for being able to use one preset and one guitar for an entire gig. So this seemed like a logical time to move over to something in the clean end of things. First of all, what you're hearing as of this version of the firmware is referred to as the CA, as in California, LONESTAR, which obviously is an algorithm based on the Mesa Boogie LONESTAR, one of my favorite amps that I actually own. You can make the clean channel dirty and the dirty channel clean. And this particular instance was the 100-watt version thereof. As a little bit of a spoiler alert, this is my go-to guitar for clean tones. So kind of pretty much anything that I plug into when I've got this in the neck position if it's set to clean, it's going to sound great. But that's also a great way to test things to see how they're going to respond. And I was super impressed with the way this algorithm responded. Also on the reverb side of things, this is where I discovered the modulated reverb, which I absolutely love. I pulled the modulation back a little bit on this one, but that's pretty much become my go-to reverb on this box. And as I was playing this, I was super impressed with the way it sounded, and most importantly, the way it felt. In the process of making this preset, I also discovered one of my favorite things about having 8 scenes per preset. So what I started off by doing was taking this first scene and copying it over to the second one. I'm not going to do that now. But what I did was, you can see that that block right there, which is the first compressor I tried, the Jewel, and then this block right here, the VCA comp, the Jewel's on, the VCA isn't, but I copied that puppy over to there, and then I turned the Jewel off and turned the VCA on, so I could just toggle back and forth between the two and hear which one I like better without the delay or the reverb on. And in turn, I copied this guy over to there and turned the reverb on, and I copied this guy over to there and I turned the reverb on. And you got it. Then I copied this guy over to there and turned the delay on, and I copied this guy over to there and turn the delay on as well. So in the process of doing so, you can A/B back and forth between the two different compressors without time-based effects on, A/B back and forth with just reverb on, and then A/B back and forth with reverb and the delay. That workflow is phenomenal. So this seemed like an appropriate time to give the bass player some. So what you might not have necessarily known is before the Archetype plugins and before Quad Cortex, Doug Castro, Neural DSP founder, was actually really well known in the industry for his work with dark glass bass products. Very highly regarded among the bass playing community. So I actually found this interview of Doug being interviewed by Mitch Gallagher at Sweetwater in 2017, and it opens up with Doug just nailing this vicious 15/8 groove with this gnarly bass tone. So just in case you didn't know, Doug can really play, which obviously informs his ability to design great products. So here's the thing. This particular demo was utilizing the Amped 6464 flip top, which is obviously based around a vintage AMPEG flip top. The cabinet I was using was a 115, as in 115, amped modern cabinet. And so, it's just the right combination of the amp and a 15-inch speaker. Obviously, as you could probably tell from the demo, I thought it sounded and felt great. The current version of the firmware on the Quad Cortex does not have a standalone preamp, which is what I would be inclined to use for something like the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster or traditional acoustic electric. However, there's an algorithm in there that's called the ROLS, as in Roland, Jazz CH120, and it's basically their algorithm of a Roland JC120. Great amplifier. I actually have 2 of them, in addition to being a great pedal platform and being heard on stuff like Metallica and King Crimson and, dare I say, Duran Duran. I said it. JC120 is a great sounding amp, and it's also nice and flat, which is why it's great for something like the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster. And there I was also using it in combination with the modulated reverb, and I was super happy with the results. As you probably guessed, I was using the same exact setup for this one as I was using for the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, which again was the Roland JC120 algorithm, the Rolls Jazz JC120. But you might also be wondering why I wasn't choosing to use a cab block. The JC120, first of all, is a solid-state amplifier, which means it's super, super clean, 120 watts in stereo, 60 per side, of clean power with a really nice sounding preamp. So I wanted to add a little bit of the color from that. But I didn't want as much color as I would have gotten if I'd used a cab block. But that said, sometimes it's worth just experimenting because you never know what you're going to come up with. Again, I was also using the modulated reverb, which is kind of becoming a go-to thing for me. But again, if you're using, whether it's an Acoustasonic, Jazzmaster, or something like the Piezo and a PRS like this, the combination of the JC120 and the modulated reverb is a great way to go. One of the questions I've been asked a number of times as it relates to the Quad Cortex is how I would approach using the dual outputs on an instrument like this. So I figured this would be great to take what we were already doing in the last demo and then add the magnetic pickups on top of it. So we're using the exact same chain on the piezo side. That again is a Roland JC120 algorithm with the modulated reverb. Basically replicating that for the magnetic side, but also adding a cabinet, because in this instance, I do want some of that color for the magnetics. Because again, when you hear a magnetic pickup, you usually don't just hear an amp without a cabinet, you hear the amp and the cabinet. Those are logical groupings. So I was using basically the blackface deluxe cabinet that's in there. Sounded great. Now, the other thing is I added the digital delay, stereo, and both these guys were basically spread left and right, one on top of the other, because I don't like to actually separate the piezo from the magnetic, especially because of what I'm doing here in the back with the speakers. All right, again, so you're hearing both piezo and magnetic on the left and right, along with modulated reverb on the piezo, and then modulated reverb and digital delay on the magnetic pickups. In turn, all that goodness is going out into my Powerstage 700 power amp. Obviously, that's from Seymour Duncan. And in case you didn't know, that amplifier is very popular with the quote-unquote FR crowd. 700 watts, 350 watts per side, going out in stereo to, on this side, the Celestion F12 M150. That's rated at 150 watts. And on this side, the F12 X200, 200 watts. And if you are as good at your math as I am, that's 350 watts. And if this is 700 watts, it means that I probably shouldn't be turning it up all the way. I'm also in the middle of production on a series of videos for Celestion, specifically for these speakers. So if you're interested in more of this stuff and hearing a wide range of tones, including a bunch with the much treasured and much beloved Quad Cortex, keep an eye out on the Celestion channel. In the meantime, the idea is, in case you didn't know, Celestion, 2/3 of their business is actually PA speakers. I didn't know that. So they're taking their expertise from the PA speaker business and, obviously Celestion speakers and the Joe Satriani's and the Eddie Van Halen's and the Steve Vai's and the John Petrucci's and the Jimi Hendrix's and the Eric Clapton's, etc. The people that, when I think of like iconic guitar tone, Celestion guys. So the point being is they're taking that expertise and they're blending that such that a PA speaker is a very fast transient response where a guitar speaker is a little bit slower. So they're taking that experience of having made full range speakers for PAs, but the way we're used to having speakers respond on the guitar side and basically making direct replacement speakers so we can stick them in our favorite cabs. Those two cabinets behind me are Mesa Boogie Theo cabinets. And what I love about those cabinets is that they basically respond much more like a 412 cabinet than a traditional 112. In fact, the first time I played one, I was completely blown away. I was just like, how is that even possible? So in any case, this type of a rig is going to be one of the things that I think a lot of people are going to be going, how do I actually get this box and, again, make it loud? So making it loud was an important part of this. So as we play out on this video, I'm going to be heading back over to the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, and I'm going to be running through the JC120 and the modulated reverb out into this guy, out into the speakers. And by the way, they're mic'd up with a pair of DPA 2011 Cs. And the thing about those microphones is they're extremely accurate, which is why you can actually place them at the center of the dust cap. So, in any case, I want to thank you for checking out this video. Once again, if by chance you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'd like to invite you to do so. Also, if you like this video, and hopefully by watching this far through, I think you do, smash that like button, and also leave some comments down below. Again, thanks so much for checking out this video. Doppler out.